Hey guys, James here again. This me what if Rudeus was pain. Rudeus is from Mushoku Tensei, a dropless reincarnation. And it's actually pretty good, so yeah. There's noise in the background, that's YouTube. So I'll have to pause actually I'll pause this real quick, turn my volume down. Alright, so what if Rudeus from Mushoku Tensei, a dropless reincarnation, what is pain? Or what if Rudeus was pain from Naruto? So yeah. No, if you guys don't know who Pain is, watch Naruto Shippuden, watch Naruto Shippuden, and then read Boruto. Don't watch it, because filler, I don't think it's filler, but it's still not good. Reading it is probably going to be better. I haven't read Boruto in a bit, so I forgot if the manga's good or not. But so far the anime is just now getting good. But off the topic now. So we're going to go over what happened to Rudeus. So Rudeus, before he would end up being hit by Truck-kun, he would end up basically... So Rudeus would still be the same way he was, but in life previous, he had purple eyes, and usually, he had purple eyes and orange hair. But now, when he's hit by Truck-kun, he would end up being transported to the Mushoku Tensei world. And when he's transported there, he would end up being born with he has the same brown hair, but he has purple eyes, and these eyes are fabled among the Demon Clan. And fabled among the Demon Clan and the Human Clan, as whoever would possess these eyes would obtain godlike power. So when Paul and Zenith, the mother and father of Rudeus, saw these eyes, they were shocked that their son was born with this. Now, these eyes are godlike in the way that they have all the same Rinnegan abilities, but can also give you abilities of the Sharingan or similar abilities. So Rudeus more like he has the same kind of because the same Rinnegan design as Pain, and will have some the basic Rinnegan abilities and the way Pain uses them, but you'll also get some of the abilities of some other Rinnegan users that we've seen. I would basically tell us what if Rudeus had the Rinnegan, but I kind of like what if Rudeus was Pain more, because Rudeus will get the Pain piercings and the Akatsuki cloak later, but not now. Well, he won't get all the piercings. He won't get the ones in his nose or lip, but he gets the ones in his ears. But not yet. So, basically, now, Rudeus, by the time he is around 2, he can already walk and talk very perfect, or at least 1, he can already walk and talk perfectly. And eventually, at age 2, he discovers magic a little bit earlier, what he thinks is magic. Remember, Paul and Zenith, they try to teach Rudeus a lot of things earlier, because he has God's eyes. They want to see if they teach him certain hard stuff, will he learn it easier, which he does. Essentially, Rudeus would be wandering around and discovers a trunk that his parents have, and he opens it. He goes through it, and he finds a book on magic. Now, it is in the demon language, as this book was confiscated that Paul was fighting, reportedly a demon was there, or someone from the demon continent was there, and Paul confiscated the book from him, but he can read it, so he just let it sit there. Rudeus is going through it, and his Rinnegan immediately gives Rudeus the knowledge to read it, or at least gives him the knowledge to read a bit of it. But Rudeus is going to have to learn how to read it by himself. Rudeus already knows this, so he'll spend hours trying to learn the demon language, and he learns the basics, which is what's in the book. So in the basics, and he begins going over it, and he finds out the magic in this is really powerful. Now, once he finds a chapter in his eyes, that's where the advanced demon language comes in. Rudeus spends a year trying to learn the advanced demon language, and will succeed. By advanced, I mean like larger words. Like Rudeus would know the basic words, like hi, how are you? Gonna go to the bathroom? Like all that stuff. That's basically what he learned from basic demon language. Now, Rudeus would learn the advanced language, which is just very long words or scientific terms or magical incantations. That's what he learns by an advanced demon language. But once he learns all that, he's able to actually learn the magic and learn about his eyes. Now, the abilities of his eyes. It said that he can use wind magic with just no incantations and just one spell. One spell is as powerful as dozens of wind spells. Rudeus discovers this, and he wants to train it. So he goes outside one day and begins just using Almighty Push. This is the first thing he learns. When he learns Almighty Push, his parents are watching him impressed. It's amazing to them. So they actually buy a spot of land nearby for Rudeus to train on, because there's tons of trees, some animals, some good water sources. Rudeus can survive there, and which he does. Now, Rudeus will end up actually learning Almighty Push on Almighty Pull within 2 months. After that, he decides to learn other magic, and this results in him learning water magic. With his Rinnegan, he already adapts to high water magic without incantations easily. Eventually, they hire Roxy, and Roxy ends up training Rudeus on that turf. Now, within a year, Roxy's already overpowered by a 4-year-old Rudeus because he already learned multiple kinds of magic plus the Rinnegan abilities. So once he learns these, Roxy already knows she's outmatched by Rudeus, so she actually spends her time training under him to learn how strong his spells are and to see if her spells can reach that same power. So Rudeus and Roxy basically just are master and student. Like, it was Roxy as Rudeus' master, but now it's Rudeus as Roxy's master. She leaves the next year, and Rudeus is actually kind of sad by this. But he's already above Roxy in magic, so he didn't have a need for her. And the parents they didn't fire her, but they told her, if he's stronger than you or at least gets near your level, you don't need to keep tutoring him. But once Roxy got enough tutoring from Rudeus, then she left. It kicked out in Rudeus, but he knew why. Now Paul, Rudeus' father, seeing how strong Rudeus is, would tell him, I want to teach you the way of the sword. I want to teach you that. So Rudeus agrees, and he grabs the sword and would train with Paul with the sword. Now, Rudeus, when I told you guys he get the ability of like some ability of a Sharingan, that ability is that he's able to perceive attacks a little bit faster, or at least be able to counter the attack as it's coming at him. That's what he starts doing, as Paul didn't know that's part of Rudeus' eyes. As it's in a book, but only Rudeus and Roxy can read it. So Paul doesn't know this, and he starts teaching Rudeus decent swordsmanship, and Rudeus is already able to pick up the North God style within at least 1 month. North God style mainly involves trickery and swordsmanship, and then the Water God, I'm pretty sure, focuses more on defensive and countering attacks, and then the Sword God style is mainly what would happen as offensive or like more I guess strong attacks, just the Sword God style. So Rudeus is able to pick up the North God style pretty easy, and then after he picks up the North God style, Paul will try to teach him how to use the Sword God style. That'd be the hardest one. Rudeus specializes in brute strength, which Paul forgot about, and Rudeus eventually beats the crap out of Paul, and he already knew the Sword God style without using it. So once Rudeus knows North God and Sword God style, he then would learn the Water God style, which was a little bit harder because his brute strength wasn't being put to use, but he was able to learn it. Now, Rudeus, since he already learned those three sword styles, Paul tried to have him master more abilities of Rinnegan, as Rudeus would confirm there is more. And Paul and Zenith, that's actually really cool because you could be a strong magician and swordsman. So Rudeus starts weaving hand seals, as it said that his eyes, if they can actually find a focusing point of magic energy, then they can actually get stronger. So Rudeus says to tell his parents that the center point would be his hand seals. So yeah. Now, Rudeus would do hand seals, and that is where he would actually end up developing summoning jutsu, or summoning like just basically beast summoning. The dog, the rhino, the lizard, the bird, all that stuff. And almost the giant cat thing was from the Hidden Leaf Ombu or the pain reincarnation. It's not reincarnation, but the pain corpses. But yeah, off that topic now. So Rudeus is 6 right now, and due to Paul basically being unmatched by Rudeus in every way, he would end up wanting to call in Ghislaine, seeing how she would do against him. And she's the Sword God, which is one of the highest powers in the world. So when he calls Ghislaine asks him, why do you want me to fight a 6-year-old? She's shocked when Paul describes, Rudeus picked up the Sword God style, the Water God style, and the North God style within a matter of months, and is already outmatching Paul in them. So Ghislaine is here to fight Rudeus, and the only thing that Ghislaine has on Rudeus is her brute strength and speed. Rudeus' technique is more advanced than hers due to him having basically some abilities of the Sharingan, which is perceiving things faster. But otherwise, Rudeus would start to learn how to infuse magical energy into his weapon, which he can fire off magic from his sword. And eventually, for a year, Rudeus and Ghislaine, almost a year, Rudeus and Ghislaine will fight almost every day, until around the 10-month mark, where Rudeus is actually able to keep up with Ghislaine's speed and strength, which shocks Ghislaine as she's the Sword God. And Paul's shocked as Rudeus is fighting the Sword God. Once Rudeus and Ghislaine eventually stop fighting or stop sparring, Ghislaine would leave saying, she has a job. She can't keep coming here every day, but it's fast for her, but she can't keep doing it every day, so she has to leave. Rudeus understands, and one day he's not fighting or training with someone, he's walking through the village, and everyone knows who he is. He wears a giant black cloak, and his eyes are bright purple, and in his ears a giant rod that Pain has. As Rudeus would tell his parents, this is where he focuses magical energy in his eyes. That's like a good point of it if he doesn't want to exhaust his power. So that's mainly the point of the rod. So he talks to some random villager kids until he sees some of them beating up a girl. Rudeus can already tell it's a girl by just Rudeus can read, I guess, chakra, and a lot of girls in the village have a similar not chakra but like aura. And Sylphie, the girl, despite having a masculine or not masculine but more like a male appearance, Rudeus can already tell that's a girl from her aura. So Rudeus will jump on top of Sylphie, pick her up, and throw her in the air as he yells "Almighty Push," sending all the bullies back. When Sylphie is falling, Rudeus will catch her and put her down. She's kind of nervous until Rudeus just tells her, "Follow me." She agrees as Rudeus brings her near a cliff and starts washing her off. Not like that, but he's spraying water on her to get the mud off her. She thanks Rudeus as him and her talk for a bit, and she asks Rudeus, can you teach me to be as strong as you? Rudeus then starts displaying his brute strength and speed, and she already knows she can't really keep up with that, but she wants to try. So next year will consist of Rudeus and Sylphie learning, mainly Rudeus teaching Sylphie a lot of things that she did not know, which would actually make her very strong compared to Canon and Sylphie. Pretty sure Canon Rudeus has 3 wives now. But yeah, off that topic. Yeah, now Rudeus, he would end up teaching a 7-year-old Sylphie. It's been a few months, and he teaches her how to use different kinds of magic, and it's going pretty well right now. But eventually, Paul would get told the village is kind of coming into a bit of poverty. Paul's family is still pretty rich, but Paul does get a offer from his cousin. Now, Rudeus isn't going there just yet, but Paul is trying to discuss it. Now, one day Rudeus comes back, and Paul, out of stress, would end up trying to get some from his wife, but she says no, she's pretty tired one night. So Paul decides to try to get some from the maid, and it works. A few weeks pass, and the maid announces she's pregnant. Now, Rudeus is actually pissed, as his mother's a very nice woman. She's very patient, kind, but Paul is the complete opposite. So when Paul announces that he got Zenith is pregnant, but it's been a few weeks, they did do some things. But when Paul announces that Zenith and Lily are pregnant, or Lilith, the maid, was pregnant, it shocks Rudeus and the mother. This is when Paul is I know. He tries to make a lie, not a lie, but try to give an excuse. This is when Rudeus says, "You are truly scum." Paul looks at Rudeus basically saying, "I'm your dad. You can't talk to me that way." But Rudeus then grabs Paul and throws him right out the window. Just grabs him, shoots him, throws him right out the window. Rudeus jumps out the window, saying, "All right, if I win this fight, you have to listen to what I say forever." And when he says that, it basically means if I win, I'm the man of the house. Paul, seeing that his masculinity, not masculinity, but his pride and authority is questioned, he would grab his sword and offer to fight Rudeus, but in town, Rudeus has to use his brute strength and speed, saying how it is. Paul trained a lot more, but Paul still wants to fight. Eventually, Paul would rush at Rudeus, trying to use his strength and speed that isn't as new, but Paul is shocked to see that Rudeus is easily dodging it, Paul's nothing. Eventually, Rudeus would stop Paul's fight with one finger, and Paul's what the hell? I can't slash downwards anymore. Rudeus says, "Pathetic. Almighty push." And Paul is shot far into the distance. Paul hits the ground and tumbles around, and he ends up losing, which makes Rudeus the man of the house. Now a month passes, and Paul will tell Rudeus, you're being sent away to your uncle. Rudeus already knows that Paul wants him gone, so Paul's not the man of the house. This is when Rudeus looks at Lilith and Zenith, saying, "I'm gonna come back one day to see my siblings. That's the only time I will come back here. But if you have any requests, mail them to me. Don't give them to Paul." Zenith and Lilith understand, and they agree. Paul is actually shocked they agree to that, but he gets in the carriage, and leaves. Paul can't knock him out. And Paul explains he can't bring Sylphie because they're broke, but Sylphie is pretty strong on her own. So basically, Rudeus will just tell her, train your power. And Sylphie at this point is around Paul's level without, like, she can use magic to keep up with Paul, and that's really it. But, yeah. So, Rudeus eventually gets to, gets to the country where he had traveled to in canon. And by the time he gets there, he's not really nervous, I guess. Like, cause I'm assuming he was pretty nervous in canon. And this time he wasn't in the carriage with Ghislaine. He was just there by himself. But eventually, when he gets there, he meets with Ghislaine, and those two talk. While they talk, like Ares is like watching from a distance. It's when when Ares hears Ghislaine say this, in the middle of the conversation. "Hey kid, me and you spar later. I got stronger, so I'll make sure you can't beat me again." And everyone that was listening, shocked. This kid had beaten Ghislaine with swords. Rudeus actually offers to spar with her right now, as Rudeus draws his blade, and his blade is more like a grass cutter blade. So Rudeus and Ghislaine then start fighting, and Rudeus, in terms of speed, matches Ghislaine heavily. This is when Rudeus eventually gets above Ghislaine, and he then says, "Almighty Slash." Which basically uses the blunt side of his sword, or at least the side of the blade is still sharp, but it won't do any lethal damage. And when he mixes it with Almighty Push, he ends up slashing, and the slash will travel to the opponent, making a giant shockwave that hits them, sending them flying to the ground in agony. So when Ghislaine with it, Ghislaine can't block, as her blade will be shattered. She can only tell. So she ends up hitting the ground, and this is when everyone realizes Rudeus is a sword god. He is the god of swords. And Rudeus and Ghislaine were battling at almost the speed of light, which is insane. But yeah. Now Ares can already acknowledge that Rudeus is now her master without even her punching him or anything. But she does still try to punch him to see, can he keep up with me physically? Which shocks her when he just takes the punch full force and his face isn't even bruised or red or scratched, not even scraped. But Rudeus eventually tells everyone, we're going to train for a bit. Well, not everyone, but he tells Ghislaine and Ares. Now, he'll train Ares with the sword only for 8 hours, which is the end of the not the end of the day, but almost towards it. Then he starts training Ares, and Ghislaine more or less would get a instruction thing to just learn about math. There's multiple points in history that are pretty valid. She has to learn a lot of stuff, but mainly math. That's one of the things she has to learn. And Rudeus is still a pervert, but he hides it under his very tough exterior. And yes, he still does worship Roxy's panties, and he does keep them. But one of the fights I had with Ghislaine, I didn't go over this. In the middle of the fight, he had actually, not in the middle of the fight, but the wager was he gets Ghislaine's panties, and he won. So he got them. So he has Ghislaine and Roxy's. So yeah. Now, back to this. Rudeus, once he finishes training Ares, he will start training Ghislaine and Ares in magic. And Rudeus has full energy. Ares did not give him a challenge one bit. So as he starts training Ares and Ghislaine in magic, they're actually shocked at how strong he is. As Rudeus points out, he has a lot more magic, with the rods in his ears channel enough magic to knock out at least the magic he holds on the perceivers in his ear. There's enough magic to how do I say this? Enough magic to be contained within 80 mages, 80 average mages. When they hear that, Rudeus then takes the receivers out, as all the magic flows back to his mana flows back to his body, and he flares it, and the ground, walls, windows, they start shattering at just the energy of it. He shoves them back in his ears, and then they're done. Everything goes back to normal as Rudeus heals it using earth magic. But eventually, once he's finished training them with magic, he goes to bed, and when he wakes up, he's in a carriage. He's in the carriage. He sees one of the guys trying to mess around with his grass cutter blade. Rudeus looks at them, saying, "Oh, really? My grass cutter?" One of the guys goes to kick Rudeus in the face, but the moment his foot gets within Rudeus, it's near it. Rudeus will chuckle as one finger, Rudeus' hand has to be pointing the direction he wants Almighty Push to be, or at least channel a large amount of aura around him. But he points one finger towards the guys and yells, "Almighty Push!" And when he pushes, would send him flying out of the cart. As Rudeus grabs his sword, or he tries to, but because he's falling, so Rudeus would yell, "Almighty Pull!" But one of the guys behind him, so the moment he yells, "Almighty Pull!" he would duck under the blade as he kills the guy behind him, grabs his grass cutter, and then kills every other person in the cart. Not cart, but carriage. The only person left is the driver, as Rudeus holds the blade to his neck, saying, "Turn back." So, the guy agrees, just being threatened with his life, and Ares is still asleep. But she wakes up in the middle of them being brought back, as Rudeus explains what happened, and she's shocked that Rudeus handled all that while she was asleep. As soon as they're brought back, Ghislaine is very curious that carriage is coming back until she sees lots of rips in it, lots of blood coming out of it. She's questioning it, but she just watches it from a distance. And eventually, the guy that Rudeus had already pushed out of it was the guy that used the Northgard style in canon. But I don't know if that topic. So when he got back, the butler, or I guess the caretaker, or the servant that set up the whole thing, he was shocked to see them coming back. Now, when Rudeus gets out, he stabs the driver, or at least the person driving the carriage. And Ghislaine then sees what happened. She's going to tell that Rudeus she can tell that Rudeus and Ares are kidnapped. Ghislaine can tell Rudeus and Ares are kidnapped because Ares is still tied up and Rudeus isn't. But the caretaker would jump down and try to fight Rudeus, he can't be that strong. Then once he jumps down, Rudeus would throw his sword with insane speed and strength, and by the time the caretaker is on the ground, his head is gone. But Rudeus Almighty pulls his blade back to his hand, and then he ends up seeing Ghislaine. As Ghislaine jumps down, talks to Rudeus for a bit. Ghislaine will thank Rudeus, and now we're actually going to fast forward a bit. We're going to fast forward around 2 weeks. So Rudeus still walks in on Ares' grandfather having some fun with a maid. Yes, it was. I assume it was consensual because the maid was actually looked like she enjoyed it. But off that topic now. I'm gonna fast forward another few months. It'd be a few years when Rudeus is 10 and Ares is 12. So she's 12. So at this point, Rudeus is having a celebration with Ghislaine, basically the whole kingdom. It's a party, but a few hours before, Ares had to learn how to dance, and she could not do it. But during this time, Rudeus had learned how to use magic that causes illusions. So he begins teaching Ares how to dance, and she does do pretty good, but she's not good enough. So as they're walking out, he places her under genjutsu that would make her copy, or at least make her body instantly try to just fit in with her partner's movements, and it does go pretty well. But when Rudy still does dance with her, it does the best. And that day, for a present for Rudeus, he gets a magic wand, or at least a staff, and that's he gets the same one as in canon, which is a giant wooden staff with a gem in the middle of it. But we're gonna fast forward a little bit more to the point where Rudeus is, I think he's 13 yet, probably 11 at this point. Ghislaine, Rudeus, and Ares are in the field walking around just to find somewhere to do a magic lesson, as they both have insane magic at this point. So by the time they're finding somewhere to do it, eventually a storm would come, and the gods are trying to track down a high mana signature. This high mana signature would be Rudeus's, and it's one of the highest in history due to his eyes. They send down one person to fight Rudeus, and Ghislaine instantly tries to get ready for a fight, but Rudeus tells her he'll do it. So if someone runs at Rudeus, and the moment they get close enough to Rudeus is legit already in front of them. The moment they hit the ground, Rudeus is already in front of them. They're masked, they had a mask on in canon, but Rudeus grabs their mask and basically repeatedly slams them on the ground until blood's pouring out of their head. He then says, "What do you want with me and my family?" He considers Ghislaine and Ares family at this point. Kind of. Well, not really Ares and Ghislaine. It's more like there's some mentor student thing. But the rest of the kingdom he considers them family. Then the guy tries to just get Rudeus off him. He tries to cut off Rudeus' arm, but Almighty Push sends him flying off. As Rudeus learned how to use Almighty Push without aiming in a certain direction. He can just think of the direction and then use Almighty Push on that direction. But he fires off Almighty Push, which makes the blade get to flying into the distance. Then Rudeus just throws the guy in the air, holds his hand out, and yells, "Ultimate Almighty Push." This Almighty Push is based on the level that destroyed Konoha. As when it's fired in the air, the sky basically separates. But there's the teleportation event still occurs, with Rudeus and Ares being sent to the Demon Continent still. But they're pretty tired from it, as Rudeus tried to make them land as safe as possible, and while he was trying to do that, he used a lot of mana. Because he was already fighting someone insanely strong, which, even though he didn't show it, he used a lot of mana. Because that giant Almighty Push was able to get the guy away from them, even though he would have killed Ares, and probably been a good match for Ghislaine. But still, he used a lot of mana to get him away with that giant Almighty Push. But when he wakes up in the Demon Continent, he wakes up with I don't know if it's Ruard or Ruard. I'm gonna say Ruard because he's a Spurd. And Rudeus was warned about Spurds, but not more or less that they're dangerous, but more or less that they're also demons, or have demon abilities. And Ruard in this one, he did want to save Ghislaine. He wanted to save Ares and Rudeus, but he wanted to save Rudeus more for the fact his eyes are Rinnegan. So when Rudeus wakes up, Ruard will ask Rudeus about his eyes, and Rudeus explains he was born with them. He doesn't know how, but he was. Also, one thing, during Rudeus, the days he didn't have training, or at least the multiple days on end he didn't have training, he would go visit his family, and he was able to travel pretty fast by using Almighty Push repeatedly. So he was able to meet Norn and Aisha. Pretty sure those are the names. But yeah, now back to the story. So Rudeus, he starts talking to Ruard, and Ruard is actually shocked when Rudeus starts telling him his feats. So he's more than shocked that Rudeus basically knows, he can do every kind of magic you can imagine. Summoning magic. Spatial magic is basically what Almighty Push is. Like Almighty Push and Pull is basically what it is. Then he can do water, wind, fire, earth, air. Basically every element that's magic he can use. So yeah. Rudeus still did send Roxy the figurine, or he would still make it, but he sent it to Roxy personally. And one of the people he taught when he sent Roxy the statue, he ended up telling her there's a note attached to it saying use these incantations to make sure that no one else besides you touches it unless you want them to. So when the prince that Roxy is kind of trying to teach magic to, when he ends up seeing the statue, he tries to touch it. He gets flung into a wall by it. He wants Roxy to take the spell off, but he won't. And other brother does take an interest in it, and Roxy can make the statues as well, so she sent one back to Rudeus, but Rudeus is more, I guess, badass in a way. But we're going to go to what was it? What was I thinking of? Oh yeah. The brother that took an interest in the statues, Roxy is teaching him some of the basics on how to make statues. As Rudeus did teach Roxy how to do that when he was training Roxy. But now, off that topic, back to this. Ares woke up freaking out about Ruard being a Spurd, and she's about to just try to run away, but Rudeus calms her down. I had to pause. Oh yeah, so one of the things that happens is basically Rudeus, Ruard, and Ares actually comes down and going throughout the Demon Continent. As they go throughout it, eventually they come across some giant animals that Ruard warns them about, but Rudeus is shocked at how strong Rudeus actually is. Rudeus drops almost every monster they come across. If they think they can use it for food, Rudeus drops it. If they can use it as water source, Rudeus drops it. He's a monster, basically. And Ruard is questioning Rudeus' strength until Rudeus reveals, he basically is a sword, he's a god. And when Ruard actually hears that Rudeus is the sword god, because Rudeus is known as the sword god. Because Ghislaine has announced she was defeated by a child. Or that child, people have challenged Rudeus, but not a lot. Because some people just believe, if Ghislaine was beaten, then they believe it. Because Ghislaine is she's not to be taken lightly. That's the best way to say it. Now, we're gonna go to when they come across the Megurdias or Megurds. So when Rudeus meets them, he speaks really he does really good with demon language. And he did teach Ares how to speak it, and a little bit of it to Ghislaine, even though she had really no interest in it. So Ares is able to pick some of it up. Eventually, they do meet Roxy's family, and this is when they hear that Roxy's dad tries to tell Rudeus, oh, well, did you take good care of my daughter, or did my daughter do well with you? Mr. Rudeus says, yes, we did do good, or when she did do good, because his whole thing was basically that he ended up training her because he overpowered her so quickly. Then they didn't really believe that until Rudeus displayed his strength and speed and magical ability, which Rudeus didn't know about because Rudeus was using a sword the whole time. So everyone's kind of aware that Rudeus might at this point be a sword god and a magic god, but they don't know just yet. But we're going to fast forward a bit when they leave. When they leave, they end up going far enough to the point where they everything else goes the same until they end up forming Dead End, the group. So as they're forming the group, they form Dead End. The horse guy still tries to start talking crap to them. It's been almost a year, I believe, with them. But he starts talking crap, and eventually Rudeus grabs him by the neck and starts beating the crap out of him. Everyone's shocked because this group that Rudeus is fighting is I'm pretty sure they were A-rank guild, but Rudeus, one member of Dead End, starts fighting the whole guild and beats them all up. By the time he's done, Rudeus announces himself as Rudeus the Sword God. They all hear that he is the Sword God because they start checking him out. Rudeus is actually kind of tall for his age. He is around 12, and he's 12. So one thing, he's 12. At 12, he looks like he's 15. Physically, he does. He's actually pretty big. And then for his appearance, he's not 6 foot, but like 5'8". At 12 years old is pretty big still. But I actually around like 5'7", 5'6". So that's from Rudeus' height. Then he wears a black cloak that covers everything up to his shins. Rudeus then wears the basic shinobi sandals. He has a sword. On his hip. He has the receivers in his ears, and he wears a headband. Headband just has doesn't have the marks on it, but he has like a steel band on it. And there's a giant R on it, which would stand for Rudeus. And purple eyes. I'm pretty sure that's actually eyeliner under his eyes, but that's basically what Rudeus has. But yeah, that's basically what Rudeus looks like. Plus his very pale complexion, plus the brown hair. Now, when Rudeus pronounces himself, they all instantly boost him up to like the highest rank guild possible. I assume certain ranks there's F rank all the way to S rank sometimes. So I assume that there might be a S rank, which I give Rudeus. So Rudeus is now an S rank, and he isn't really too. He's not really too surprised. But we're going to fast forward a bit to when they try to do low rank missions. And Rudeus does meet Hitogami, or God. He does meet him, and God recommends Rudeus do these certain missions. And he is actually telling Rudeus that he's kind of proud of him for his first missions. I give you godlike power. So he thinks Rudeus is actually doing good with it. And Rudeus, hearing that God gave him the eyes, basically, Rudeus, he owes God a big amount, and God explains that what Rudeus owes is going to be insane. So Rudeus can't just say some random things like, "Oh, I owe you this." No, God will tell Rudeus what he owes, and he owes a lot. So basically, Rudeus will be very obedient. So God gives Rudeus some advice, and Rudeus follows it to the T. So yeah. Now, eventually, Rudeus will end up doing a mission, and they still find the group. This time, when Rudeus has them all intimidated and pinned up, the guy doesn't try to kick Rudeus this time. And Rudeus doesn't need to kill him, as Rudeus did get a warning from Rudeus about killing people. And Rudeus, knowing if he does piss off Rudeus will most definitely kill him. Rudeus won't do it instantly, but Rudeus will give him 3 strikes. That's basically it. But off that topic now. Eventually, they still do end up leaving, and pause real quick. Alright, so eventually they do find those three people. The one guy doesn't kick Rudeus, which results in Rudeus not killing one of them. But Rudeus was pretty pissed off at one of them for just being nervous, saying if Rudeus wasn't so strong, he'd kill him. And Rudeus about to punch the guy until Rudeus would grab Rudeus and hold him down, saying, "This is your first warning. Don't kill anyone unless I okay it." And Rudeus is actually very demanding right now, as he wants to make sure him and Ares get back to Golang and Ares' family alive. So, if he thinks something might go wrong, he's going to be very demanding about it. And Rudeus is actually shocked that Rudeus' physical strength is overpowering him this much. As being a super, you are not weak physically, you are an absolute beast, but Rudeus is easily holding a super down like he's nothing. But yeah. Eventually, they do go on the anaconda thing. We have to fight the giant snakes. This time, none of them die, and they're actually able to get pretty strong during this thing. As Rudeus is protecting them, and they're able to get really good hits in. Eventually, the other group does take the credit for killing the anaconda, as Rudeus, Ares, and Rudeus weaken the anaconda severely, but the other group kills it, and they take the credit, which boosts them up to around a B rank guild. Or at least them personally. But eventually, Rudeus will end up leaving with Rudeus and Ares. And that guild by themselves, but they did get some training from Rudeus on the way to certain places, so they are pretty strong still. Yeah, I sit up for a bit. But now, this would lead the voyage part of it. So Rudeus ends up going Rudeus. Oh, so one thing. Instead of in canon, Rudeus being a little mad and pours water in his head is to reveal his hair dye. Someone bumps into Rudeus and they're carrying lots of stuff. One of the things on top being water, and it's spilled on Rudeus, revealing he's a super. Now everyone immediately starts being scared of him. This is when Rudeus speaks up and makes a giant dome around everyone. Not even Rudeus can leave, but there's some light coming out at the top. So when Rudeus ends up when Rudeus ends up making a dome, he talks for a bit, and eventually one thing that made everyone kind of just calm down was Rudeus has done nothing wrong. So far, I've been the aggressor in everything, and it's gone my way. You guys should fear me, not Rudeus. He's been the one trying to keep me in check, which is but isn't true, as Rudeus is just trying to make sure that no one dies on their quest. When everyone hears that, Rudeus is more or less the more aggressive one. They don't fear him, but they can all tell he's a bigger threat than Rudeus. So yeah, so Rudeus is the bigger threat. They all understand that now. So, what else should I go over? Because I don't really I forgot some stuff. What else? What was it? Oh yeah, the voyage. So eventually they go the Demon Continent, and they're able to go somewhere where they are about to. We have to go over Roxy. That's Roxy, and her thing is still the same. She still ends up doing the same thing, but she's pretty strong. But eventually, Rudeus they go try to find a voyage, a ship to get them on. And Rudeus did cut his hair, and he cut his hair, still covers his eye, but they're still not allowed to voyage. It's going to be pretty expensive too. They have a lot of money because they're an S-rank guild. They did a lot of high-ranking missions. But eventually, while Rudeus is trying to find a way to how do I say it? I guess find some illegal way to make money. He ended up going to alleys because he saw a cat, and he wanted to chase the cat just for fun. So just have a little bit of fun. He chases the cat into an alley, and the cat runs off. As he's walking away, thinking it was a little fun, as he got to hold back a lot. Eventually bumps into the demon goddess, and the guy's obviously trying to trick her into coming with him, but the demon goddess doesn't know that. So the time Rudeus sees him, he just puts both of his hands on the guy's head and says, "Almighty push." And the guy's head is basically obliterated, because two almighty pushes colliding is not good, which kills the guy. Demon Goddess immediately tries to punch Rudeus and everything, but Rudeus reaches into his backpack, pulling out a piece of food and gives it to her, and he keeps giving her that piece of food, similar foods. After a bit, she ends up kind of just thanking Rudeus for the food, and yeah, I don't really know what else I should go over right now. But she still does give Rudeus that one eye, and she does try to stab Rudeus in the eye. But this time, when she sees that he has basically the god's eyes, she can't stab him, as she knows she can't ruin that eye. So she has to just hone force some of the power into Rudeus's eye, and when his Renegon turn bright red, and again Tomoe. That would end up basically he being that indicates the power that he got in canon, which would help him see a few seconds into the future. And Rudeus says his immense mana is able to immediately teach him how to use the eye. So yeah. Now, eventually, Rudeus would end up meeting back up with Ruard and Ares, and Rudeus still did save that one old man, a smuggler, and he does give them the same thing, rescue these children from this mansion. So they go to the mansion and start saving the kids, and eventually Rudeus starts trying to save the dog. By the time Rudeus saves the dog, he kind of pets it and cuddles it for a bit, and the smuggler does still he still betrays them, but this time Ares just straight up kills him easily. As soon as he reveals he's a traitor, Ares with an instant decapitates him with no effort. So Ares kills him, and eventually the leader of the Beast Clan, pretty sure he's the leader, he ends up trying to trying to just fight Rudeus, but Rudeus dodges all his attacks until he ends up pinning the beast leader down, saying he wasn't being a pervert to the dog. That's what we do when we think an animal's cute. We pet it. He starts petting the beast, the leader, and as he pets its head, the leader can't admit he likes it, but he likes it. He's also the guy that says, "Fine, it's misunderstanding. I get it." And they eventually talk for a bit, and Rudy stays in the village for a long time, and he ends up talking about Ghislaine and how he defeated her, and he's a new sword god. And at this point, Rudeus is actually, I'd say he's 13 right now, but they still end up getting some way to get just the voyage. And Rudeus this time he encounters Roxy a lot later as they were doing some different stuff because they're trying to get a lot more, how do I say it? I don't know how to say it, but they just try to get a lot more gear because I can't really go in depth on what I was trying to do as I forgot it. But yeah, We're gonna fast forward a bit, and so they encounter Roxy, and Roxy is shocked at how big Rudeus is at this age. And Roxy's guild had heard that Rudeus is very strong, but they didn't know how strong. So by the time they encounter each other, Roxy asks Rudeus, what changed? Anything interesting happened? And there's one thing Rudeus left out in his letters. Rudeus announces he became the sword god. One of the people in Roxy's group doesn't believe this, so he wishes that Rudeus at max speed, or they wish that Rudeus, I don't know if it's a boy or girl in swordsman, or anything else, but he wishes that Rudeus at max speed. But eventually, as they get close enough, Rudeus just draws his blade and immediately blocks it using the hilt. Each time he gets close enough, Rudeus just flings his sword out and blocks it. But eventually they get close enough, and Rudeus stops the attack with one finger. He's not even bleeding. But as Rudeus holds off the attack, he just says, "Push." And the guy's sent flying in the distance. He then says, "The sword god will not waste his time on a weakling like him." Roxy kind of chuckles, and eventually... Alright, so fast forward a bit. Now, Rudeus, once they voyage and get to their group, to the island they wanted to get to. I know I said group, but when they get to the spot they wanted to, the island, which is the central continent. By the time they get there, they have their goal. And Roxy, Rudeus, she wanted to go with Rudeus, but Rudeus told her, do whatever you wanted first. Then me and you, we will be in a group again. And Roxy has to admit, Rudeus looks pretty good. So, eventually, Rudeus will end up encountering his dad, and that didn't go well. And Paul starts trying to start telling Rudeus, I left you letters to find your mom, find Sylphie, find Lilith, find Aisha, or Isa. I'm not sure the name. Let me check real quick. Yeah, Aisha. So Paul, Paul says, I left you letters saying, can you find your mother, Aisha, Sylphie, me, your other sister, Norn? Can you find anyone? But you didn't do a thing. Paul eventually will try to punch Rudeus, but Rudeus just grabs his hand and just holds him on the ground, saying that, I didn't get any letters. I was in the demon continent. Well, Paul didn't hear him say that, he's just enraged. But eventually Rudeus sees how mad Paul is, so he lets Paul rapidly beat on him. Eventually, once Rudeus thinks Paul did enough, he just pulls Paul on the arm breaker and holds Paul's face to the ground, and Paul can't speak. Eventually, Paul just realizes, he can't really say anything, and Rudeus then says, "I didn't get your letters." And Paul wasn't aware that Rudeus and Ares were transported. He didn't get news of that. That's what Rudeus will say. He's had so much trouble in life, as he just says, he was caught in teleportation event 2. He was put in the demon continent. He lets his father up, as Paul immediately just admitted once he heard his son was in the demon continent and survived. Once Paul stands up, he actually hugs Rudeus, being a little upset by this. And Norn didn't see Rudeus beating up her dad. So Norn just asked Rudeus, who are you if dad's hugging you? And when Paul leaned down, saying, "This is your big brother, Rudeus." Norn starts crying, and she hasn't seen Rudeus in a long time. She remembers the name, but she knows that he was her big brother and very caring, as he supported them with a lot of money. So she jumps up on Rudeus, starts basically being a face hugger to him, and Rudeus tries to pull her off, but she won't come off. Eventually, Rudeus kind of just gives in as Norn jumps off Rudeus after a few minutes, and Rudeus and Paul talk for a bit. Norn is listening, and Paul actually says he's sorry for attacking Rudeus first, and Rudeus says he's sorry for putting Paul down and telling him, he didn't care about the letters at that point. As Rudeus can admit, he didn't care about the letters at all. He was more focused on getting out of the demon continent alive. But yeah, we're going to go over some other stuff now. So, after Rudeus and Paul talk for a bit, Rudeus ends up having to leave again with Ares, but the day before they leave, no, the day before they leave. I was messing up timelines with certain stuff. So Rudeus is leaving, and he leaves not with Ruard. Ruard tells him, he's going to go his own way. He doesn't do his own thing. So Ruard leaves. Rudeus and Ares then find their own way to get somewhere, and they get to the spot they wanted to be. They kind of just sleep in a hotel or an inn. Eventually, Ares will tell Rudeus she wants to do some things with him. And they didn't meet Ghislaine and everyone. They still met them. I don't know why I didn't mention that first, but they met Ghislaine and the other butlers, and announced that Ares might end up being married off because everyone in the family is missing or dead. Yeah, they're all dead basically. So Ares is going to be married off to become the queen. But eventually that night, Rudeus and Ares end up doing some things. Unlike in canon, Rudeus is actually pretty massive down there. So that night, Ghislaine, all she really hears is intense screaming. So eventually Ares has her crawl her way out of the room, sort of walking. And she did cut her hair, but she had her limping down, and Ghislaine and her left, with Ghislaine carrying Ares on her back. Now, Rudeus knows that Ares definitely enjoyed it, as he knew that she was smiley while screaming. That's really it. But yeah, age 13, Rudeus lost his virginity. Now, pause real quick. Alright, so Rudeus, he gets the note in the morning and is pretty disappointed, and his family member, his family jewels, are still crippled. Well, is now crippled. Rudeus is going somewhere just to walk out, he's just questioning life at this point. As he questions things and walks around, he ends up coming across Orstrid, the dragon god. Now, they only encounter each other after a year, as Rudeus is around 14, and his height and body now match. He's 14, 5'8". Still, his height didn't really change. But he bumps into Ortis, Orstis. I don't know how it's pronounced. But he bumps into him, and Ortis. So the dragon god wants an apology, but Rudeus keeps walking, and so the dragon god can already tell that Rudeus is basically dead inside. He's dead. He doesn't nothing matters to him anymore. And Orsted keeps looking at Rudeus, questioning him. And he then says, "I'm the great dragon guy. You can't treat me like this." And Ghislaine, he mentioned Hitogami to Ghislaine, but she was very confused on who that was. But he asked, the dragon god about Hitogami. Hitogami, dragon god basically wants to fight Rudeus now. That's when Rudeus warns him, saying, You're the dragon god, I'm the sword god. Imagine what this fight will do to this area. Rudeus draws his blade, still being pretty dead inside, he has to fight. As the Dragon God and Rudeus fight, Rudeus dodging each and every attack until he ends up getting behind Orsted, Dragon God. I'm calling him Dragon God. Once he gets behind Dragon God, he ends up just saying an ultimate almighty push. And we're going to go from a very, very large sky view. The Dragon God was flung into the distance with a giant rock on top of his arm, barely damaging it. We go to Rudeus, who's in the middle of a giant crater that looks like is nuked. Rudeus walks off, still being... So, Rudeus, he used a giant almighty push, and that literally used almost all of his mana. Because he basically let out a nuclear disaster in the distance. Well, not in the distance, but a whole nuclear disaster right there. Minus all the radiation. But Dragon God was shocked. The Sword God can use that. Supposed to be God of the Sword, using magic at this level. Well, this is when his apprentice, who was caught in the blast and is actually right next to him, pretty tired. Once they recover, Dragon God's like, the Sword God, you're supposed to use swords, not magic. But she then says, if he was using magic on you, imagine what he could have done with the sword. But I have to open something right here. Now off the topic. So we're going to fast forward a bit, and Rudeus kept walking to the point where he still joined that guild with Soldart. I don't care how his name's pronounced, but yeah. Now Ares is still at that sword school, and she doesn't really need it, but she's just there to do something. And when that one girl still wants to get a one-up on her, she's well, at least they mentioned something about sex, and Ares says she's not a virgin. And this time the girl tries to have a comeback saying, at least when I lose my virginity, my guy won't be small unlike yours. Ares eventually then says, oh no, I was screaming all night long. And this just leads that girl's wanting to find Rudeus and researching him, just to see what Ares was talking about. But once Ares' rival sets off, it's more or less up to Rudeus to find that same magic school. And when he's there, Sylphie's whole thing, by the way, that still happened the exact same way, and not one difference occurred, not one. At best, the only difference that would occur is she has a better reputation due to her being insanely strong. I would say that this Sylphie might be on level of Demon Continent Rudeus. It's still pretty strong, but not as strong. So Demon Continent Rudeus is around equal to this Sylphie right now. So yeah. Now we're gonna go to that's what happened. I don't know why I'm forgetting so much. I just read this. I read these chapters not that long ago. But when Rudeus would enroll in a school, like a magic school. And this time, wait, no. Actually, I skipped the whole arc. Yeah, I skipped the whole arc by accident. Just for my sake, I'm gonna make this arc happen later. And sadly, some gross things will have happened to Rudeus' maid Lilith, but she is not dead. Lilith isn't a bad person. The only bad thing she did is, she was a bad person for a brief moment. I did not like her for a month because of her sleeping with Paul. But yeah, no, let's just skip that real quick. And we're gonna go to the arc I was supposed to have happen. Rudeus had heard rumors of a maid that looked just like Lilith, and then he had rumors of her because some guys had actually asked her to do some things with her, but she beat them up for it. And she had a very small daughter. Yes, according to the rumors, he asked what the maid looked like, and they describe her. And he already knew that was just like Lilith. Then he asked to describe the little girl, and she looked just like the mom, but a little bit smaller, and she didn't have glasses. Everybody's just pissed off, as his maid is basically his stepmom, and the little girl with her is his half-sister. So Rudeus begins running around looking for the kingdom, and he runs around for around 2 weeks until he finds the kingdom. And he didn't eat or drink anything for 2 weeks. So as he's about to enter the kingdom, they try to like shoo him off, but Rudeus will use illusionary magic on them, and they let him in. Then he goes inside. He eats tons of food. He eats and drinks tons of food in the kingdom, until he decides to go to the king. And the guards try to shoo him away. Illusionary magic solves it. So eventually, he makes his way to the top floor, and all the guards are confused. And the guards are a little confused on who Rudeus is until they start thinking of something, because his cloak and his appearance is a little similar, like familiar to something. Rudeus at this point is 15, by the way. He's now 15. Because his height at this point is 6 foot. He has long brown hair. His hair goes like directly, almost like directly at below his ears, like around that range. So his hair is below his ears, or like at like his earlobe, I guess. And then he has 2 receivers in his ears, mixed with one receiver going through his nose. Actually, no, not with the nose, but just the 2 receivers in his ears. There's a headband with an R on it, purple eyes, with one of them being bright red with just symbols in it. And this is when they realize it's the sword god Rudeus. Eventually they call the prince down to meet Rudeus, and it's all been that the prince would bring the maid. And that maid being Lilith and her daughter. Now, when Lilith and Aisha end up going with the prince, they're a little confused on who's here. But it's a sword god. When they get there, Lilith is actually amazed to see that's Rudeus. Rudeus looks at the prince saying, "Oh, I want my maid and my sister back." And the prince is like, "Your maid and sister?" And Rudeus says, let me address it in a different way. I want my mother and my sister back. He points to Lilith, and he points to Aisha. The prince says, "Who do you think you are?" That's when the guard actually whispers in his ear saying, "Sir, he's a god." The prince is immediately fearful and starts crapping himself. Like right then, he actually starts doing it. They smell it. The prince then says, "Well, kill him. You can't have my maid." Rudeus looks at the guard saying, "Try it, and I swear to God, you will not live to see the next 10 minutes of your life." They all immediately bow down in front of Rudeus, saying, "Sir, what are your orders?" As all of them there are swordsmen right now. All swordsmen are bowing down to Rudeus. The mages are not, on the other hand. As Rudeus looks at them, saying, "Kill the mages." And the mages are actually against Rudeus right now. Like they're against him. So when he said kill all the mages tried to fire up blast at Rudeus, but this leads to the guards just basically slaughtering the mages. Even though the mages didn't want to do it, the prince would have forced them to anyway, so it led to basically a battle that Rudeus had ensued. Lilith would jump and hug Rudeus, as Rudeus says, "You don't need to hug me." He picks up Lilith, and then he picks up his sister, and he looks at the prince and says, if I see you near Roxy, my sister, my mother, or anyone I know, I swear to God, I'll come back here and burn this kingdom to the ground." Prince immediately didn't realize that he's Roxy's student, as he forgot what Roxy's student looked like. But Rudeus, after wandering for days without eating or drinking, then ate and drank something, and then basically ransacked the kingdom. But yeah, now Rudeus had left the kingdom and found some way to get Aisha and Lilith back to his father. They thank Rudeus for it, and they leave. Now Rudeus would enroll in magic school around a month later. When he enrolls, it's like he has to do the thing where like the magic circle, and then he has to kind of spar or just show off his magic power. They don't know who he is, as Rudeus is just using something to change his appearance. As his red eye, he puts something over it, and then like everyone's gonna guess who he is, but he says he wants to be a normal teenager for once, which is going to school. So they're okay with that. Now, Rudeus, as he's enrolling, he's told to fight one of the students. That student being Fitz, aka Sylphie. Now, Rudeus, when you look at Fitz, he feels like they're familiar from somewhere. Rudeus begins channeling some mana into his eye and begins examining Sylphie or Fitz's body. He examines into her body. He's like, oh. He smirks, saying, "It's gonna be an interesting fight." Sylphie then immediately realizes that Rudeus recognized her, and so did the princess, and so did Luca. And Ruka immediately asks, "Can he fight him?" As Rudeus says, I'm willing to do as much numbers against me as you want. Because from what I can say, all of you are weaker compared to me. At least almost every student that's there wanting to fight Rudeus, and Rudeus agrees to it. So the moment they're all in a circle, Rudeus throws his sword to the side, saying, "All right, come at me." Oh, that was shot Rudeus, as Rudeus would inhale, saying, everything he's going to use magic from his mouth, but he just slams his hand on the ground, saying, like summoning, and a giant, basically like the Ten Tails statue, or I guess shell. It would just shoot from the ground, start smacking around all the students except for Fitz. Sylvie barely dodges the attacks. By the time Rudeus summons it, gone, and every student just on the ground, tired, beaten. All this left is Fitz, which just leads to Rudeus appearing in front of her, putting 2 fingers in her gut, and yells "Almighty push," sending her flying into a wall. And Rudeus basically established his dominance over every other student. Fast forward around an hour, and every student recovered, and they're now in their classroom. Also, Rudeus didn't team up with his dad's old teammate. She kind of enrolled in school by herself, and she knows who he is, so they're kind of acquaintances, but they're not a team anymore. But Sylvie tries to pretend that Rudeus didn't recognize her. But yeah, now we're going to go let me find the names real quick. All right, so there's basically Rudeus. He encounters the 3-4 students. Pretty sure. I think actually 6. So people that he would encounter would be Persenna, and let me take her name. All right, so he would encounter some students. Those being Cliff, who had met Ares and wanted her to marry him. She said no. And then he would encounter Persenna, who is a beast human. Then he encounters Nenia. Yep. So Renia, Persenna, Narahoshi, which is the dragon god's assistant. Zenoba, the prince's brother. Cliff, he encounters basically. See if I can just do this. So Renia, Persenna, Narahoshi, Zenoba, Cliff. 3 people the multiple other people he encounters. Cliff more or less encounters him and calls him the master for being able to make the statues of Roxy. And Cliff more or less just wants to talk to Rudeus, seeing if a certain rumor is true, that he is basically Roxy's fiance. Roxy does know that they're not really they might might not be fit for each other, but she does think that once they can grow up, they might be the perfect fit, perfect match. I don't really care. But then we have Persenna, who looks at Rudeus and instantly knows who he is. So the sword god had reportedly come to her family's village and took down her the chief pretty easily. But after saving the slaves, the beast human slaves. So yeah. Now Rudeus, he wants to get some actions on certain things, and his member did get restored just through him finding Sylvie and seeing her cute looks again. He ended up kind of being healed down there. But he encounters Cliff. Yes, Rudeus, if he is if he is Ares's fiance. Rudeus says he doesn't know what they are, but all he does know is that he would like to marry her one day. And Cliff is a little disappointed by this, but isn't, as the relationship isn't confirmed. Now, Rudeus would talk to the girl in his dad's group. I forgot her name. I don't really care about it either way. So the girl in his dad's group, that's what I'm going to refer to her as. He talks to Rudeus for a bit, and that's when Fitz, Luca, and the princess walk in, and they start talking to everyone else for a bit. Rudeus would pull Fitz aside, which the girls in the class are a little shocked by. But when he pulls her aside, he then hugs Sylvie, saying, "I've been trying to look for you for so long." As yes, he has. By the time he was looking for Lilith and Aisha, he was looking for Sylvie too, hoping she might have been near them. But he didn't find her, so he was a little disappointed, but now he found her and he's very happy. So when he hugged Sylvie, something very large was rubbing up against her, and it made her blush and moan a bit. Rudeus tries to ignore it, but he lets go of the hug and goes in class, hiding it in his cloak. He sits down for a bit, and he talks to a lot of the girls in class and some of the guys. Zenoba teaches them he teaches Zenoba how to make the statues. Zenoba teaches him. Rudeus will teach him how to make the statues pretty easily. And yeah. But we're going to fast forward a bit to by the time it's basically mating season for the two girls. It was mating season for those two. Rudeus already knows he has to defend, just to make sure they're his still, because one, Zenobia did tell Rudeus they broke the statue that Rudeus gave him. We had Rudeus basically beating them up and disciplining them in his own perverted way. And now it's mating season. They look up to Rudeus to see all the guys that want them. And when Rudeus sees all the guys, he says, these are horny. It's kind of weird. Looks at them as a lot of them are saying, like some of them are saying, they'll be my wife, they'll be my girlfriend, they'll be the woman that bears my children. Rearson says, alright, I can get rid of this. He inhales, saying, thinking, great tornado. As he spits a giant gust of wind out of his mouth, and it spins in the form of a tornado, which would result in basically a giant vortex sweeping them all up and shooting them every direction possible. A short shot away, the giant demon lord would jump down off the roof, saying that was very impressive. Reason says, Walt was impressive. That's when the demon lord says, that giant tornado you spit out. Where he says, it's basically just like me spitting out a loogie. That's nothing. That's basically just me. That attack is comparable to me taking a piss on a random day. The demon lord's like, no, that's how common that attack is for you. Because no, not common, easy. This demon lord then goes over Rudeus' mana and then discovers his mana is intense and insane. And Rudeus has been sealed. He sealed some of his mana off the whole time he's been there, which has almost been a year, I'd say, at this point. But yeah, now it's time for Rudeus versus Demon Lord. Demon Lord requests that Rudeus go all out, as he says, no, my fiance told me tales of you being so strong, and the mana that she told me about isn't here. Are you the wrong guy? Rudeus takes off his the eye patch. He takes it off. Rudeus' mana is so intense that the building is almost crumbling at it. At just the pressure of it. And the girls even peek out the window to watch, and they had to do some things, as they even saw Rudeus and the thing involved two fingers. But eventually, the Demon Lord would challenge Rudeus to a fight, and the moment he rushed at Rudeus, the moment he even took one, Rudeus looked at him, and basically in a Mike Guy kind of moment would say, move one muscle and I'll destroy you. The guy chuckled as he took even one step. The moment he took one step, Rudeus was gone, and so was his body. This when Rudeus was just behind him, and the Demon Lord tried to rebuild himself, but he kept even moving an inch. Rudeus would just destroy him until the Demon Lord had to rebuild his mouth first and yelled, I submit. Rudeus stopped cutting him to pieces, and he rebuilt himself, saying, you cut me to pieces 10 times. Hey, it was nothing but atoms at one point. You struggle, saying, well, we're all just made of atoms. What I did was make you 100% atoms. Well, you can't be 100% atoms, but either way, I turned you to atoms. The Demon Lord would call Rudeus oppressive, and say, they should be allies at some point. Rudeus agrees, as the Demon Lord and him go inside and talk for a bit. Principal tries to tell him the Demon Lord can't be there, until Rudeus gives an illusion that everyone to the staff that the Demon Lord is now a student there, even though he's not. And then he gets free range to do whatever he pleases, except for certain things. But Rudeus, he goes inside the girl's room as they all thank him, and leads to Rudeus making those two scream all night long. But I'll end this part here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe, comment, like the video, comment if you didn't like it. Bye.